Bruce Lee is a legend. He was a philosopher, a martial artist, an author, a television star, a movie star, and so much more. In his brief 32 years before his tragic death in 1973, he accomplished so much, and he's still remembered today in posters and books, in action figures, and so much more. What about comics? There have been some comic treatments of Bruce Lee. In fact, there was one that was just released in March of 2025. But I want to focus today on the 2016 comic book run written by his daughter, Shannon Lee. So, I'm Alan. This is Green Archer Comics YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk about Bruce Lee in the comics. Started on Free Comic Book Day in 2016. And I still actually have this comic at home because I was so excited because I've been a Bruce Lee fan for most of my life. I've watched his Kung Fu movies. I am a huge Green Hornet TV series fan, obviously, as well as a comics fan. And so seeing Bruce Lee in comics was very exciting to me. What made this different than some of the previous Bruce Lee comics is that this was actually authored by Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, and Bruce Lee Incorporated was involved in this. So Bruce Lee Incorporated partnered with Darby Pop Publishing and Magnetic Press to produce these 5 comics. Volume 1 from 2016 is Bruce Lee, The Dragon Rises. And they've got a really good cast to put this together. So Shannon Lee worked with Jeff Klein from Darby Pop to write the comics. Pencils and ink were done by Brandon McKinney and colors by Zach Atkinson. And that stayed fairly consistent throughout the run of the series. And the basic concept is fairly simple. What if Bruce Lee had never actually died and instead had been kept in a government facility for 40 years. And actually that goes along really well with some of the things that have surrounded Bruce Lee's death. There have always been these rumors that Bruce Lee didn't really die and that he is still alive somewhere, etc. So kind of playing into the conspiracy theories a little bit, but in a very different way. And in addition to Bruce Lee, the comics have Joe Toomey, his old friend, who also apparently lent him his underwear before he was encased in the government facility. And then 2 teenagers, Jax and Ren, who help Bruce Lee acclimate to this new world. So Bruce Lee escapes from this government facility, and he doesn't have any memory of who he is or what he is. And so he winds up first at a karate class with an instructor who is kind of over the top. Think, Karate Kid type Cobra Kai place. And he is really abusive to these 2 kids. Bruce wanders in and defeats the instructor in combat, but nobody recognizes him, which I find very interesting. He doesn't know what's going on. These 2 kids that he helped agree to take him home so that he can figure out who he is and call somebody. And their neighbor happens to be Joe Toomey, who is Bruce Lee's old friend. And at least in the first issue, Joe Toomey is the most interesting character. And that's because Bruce Lee doesn't have his memories. He doesn't have all of his skills yet. So Joe Toomey does a lot of the fighting, but also provides that kind of background to everybody. And he's a really well-developed character. In fact, I had to look him up to make sure he wasn't based on a real person. As far as I can tell, he wasn't. Bruce Lee befriends both the teenagers and, of course, his old friend Joe Toomey. They go and they find a hideout in the Cotsmart simply because the bad guys are coming after them. They're trying to get Bruce Lee back. And then we get to meet the villain. And she is a Russian that's involved in this, whatever this plot is. We never fully understand it, but she has a lot of really famous people encased in cryogenic cubes, basically. And they need to get Bruce Lee back and put him back there for whatever her master plan is. So eventually the bad guys come in, they electrocute Bruce Lee, they recapture him, but now he's got more of his powers back. He's able to break through the cubes, and we get to see a much, much more powerful Bruce Lee, especially as the comics progress. And that's one of the things that really stood out for this. In addition to the story being very, very true to Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee's writing, again, in large part because Shannon Lee was involved, the action set is really good. Going back to 2016, a lot of the reviewers of the time referred to it as almost animated style because it felt the movement you could feel coming through there, and the fight scenes especially go through really well, and they feel like they are the kind of fight scenes you'd see in a Bruce Lee movie. So that is really well done in here, and that's one of the things that I liked about this. And we have a story in multiple parts where the kids are constantly trying to keep up with Joe and Bruce. They can't quite keep up with them. They keep getting in trouble. Bruce has to rescue them. Bruce has to rescue Joe. But then they also have to go and rescue him. And Bruce Lee has a vision about Ken Blanchard, who is another person who's trapped and then been released. And he's supposed to initiate all of the people in the world getting under this woman's spell. And again, it's not quite made clear in what way, but that's what he's supposed to do. And there's been a computer chip implanted in his back, and Bruce and Joe disrupt what he's supposed to be doing, and they pull out the computer chip and then go and figure out where this facility is and try to take it down, but it's been removed. So has the kid's house, which is really fascinating that it's just been completely removed, kind of showing how powerful this organization is, that even if you can stand up against them, they have the power to just remove things from existence, which I find fascinating. Unfortunately, it ends on a little bit of kind of ambiguous note. So the bad guys aren't captured. Bruce Lee defeats their current plans, but we don't know what's going to happen next. And then one of the mysteries of this comic book series has been what's happened to the kids' parents, specifically their father, who's been gone for a year. And in the end, Ken Blanchard says he knows who their father is, but then we don't find anything more about that, which is a little frustrating. And so I thought the ending was a little too ambiguous, especially for a comic book type, type ending. Normally we want things wrapped up a little bit nicer. But overall, the comic is really good. The story is fascinating. The fight scenes are fantastic. And it shows a lot of Bruce and his philosophy, and he's a good introduction to Bruce Lee for anybody who's wanted to know more about him. Then we get to Volume 2. And Volume 2 is listed under The Walk of the Dragon, but that is only a single issue. And in that issue, we kind of gloss over the ending of Volume 1. And Bruce Lee is just out carrying out his day, and he gets roped into a fake battle with a Chuck Norris impersonator who everybody thinks he's a Bruce Lee impersonator. And so they recreate the Way of the Dragon fight, which I think is fantastic because it's one of my favorite fight scenes ever. But again, you lose the continuity from Volume 1 to Volume 2 because we never get that real closure. However, as a standalone issue, definitely the single issue of The Walk of the Dragon is really good. Overall, I like these comics a lot. So kind of the open-ended ending is no fun, but I think they're well done, and especially for of their time of 2016, I think they're really good. The characters are well developed and fleshed out. You really care about them, and it tells a concise, good Bruce Lee story. I do highly recommend them. They're usually you can pick them up fairly easily as single issues, but the trades are available everywhere to pick up. So highly recommend going and grabbing that if it's something that interests you. Thank you as always for watching. As always, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. And we'll look for more videos coming soon. Keep reading comics.